The recent allegations against entertainer R. Kelly and the recent Lifetime docuseries are deeply, deeply disturbing. It is our job here at the Cook County State's Attorney's Office to investigate claims in the interest of justice and of public safety. I should stress that it takes the courage to relive and repeatedly re-experience trauma by telling your story of sexual victimization. But we rely heavily on victim accounts and witness statements to prosecute cases involving sexual assault and domestic violence.
So these so-called victims didn't file police reports as they proclaim on social media.
I'm here today to encourage victims of sexual assault or domestic violence related to these allegations to please get in touch with our office. Please come forward. There is nothing that can be done to investigate these allegations without the cooperation of both victims and witnesses. We cannot seek justice without you.
If I just believe it, there's nothing to it. I believe I can fly. I believe I can touch the sky.
We have received a number of calls from relatives of those who have had people in contact with Mr. Kelly over the course of the last couple of years.
You also had people on social media begging people to come forward instead of filing the proper police reports as an incident such as this would involve.
What I will say is that if we are going to take these allegations seriously, it requires, this isn't one of those situations where it's just forensics. We need actual witnesses and victims to have the courage to tell their stories. If they have concerns about further victimizations of others, it becomes necessary to have the courage to come forth and tell what happened. We cannot do anything related to these allegations without the cooperation of victims and witnesses. And that is why I'm here today, to encourage anyone who has information to please come forward.
So if everybody is so familiar with these allegations, why did it take a fake docuseries to get people to act upon it? Oh, that's right. People were investigating and found nothing. Just unfounded allegations brought by disgruntled people. Period. We're to believe that people are walking around with decades-old evidence.
I was sickened. I was sickened by the allegations. I was sickened as a survivor. I was sickened as a mother. I'm sickened as a prosecutor. I worked in this office for a number of years, including in 2008. And so the allegations were not new to me. But I think listening to survivors and giving a platform for survivors to be able to tell their stories was heartbreaking.
And let's think about these bond proffers that we see emerging now. According to them, the 4 stories detailed in the 4 bond proffers are a handful out of many accusations that have been levied against Kelly through his decade-long career as an entertainer. He was acquitted on child pornography charges in 2008, but the accusations against him have continued to mount. Now, with that being said, let me address one more time. This is the reason why it's not double jeopardy in this case today. Because in the past, if you go and look it up, you will notice the specific charges that he was acquitted of in his last trial. And you will be pointed to the fact that they left out the charges that we see today. So in the past, they charged him for the tapes. They never charged him for actually, allegedly, sexually abusing a minor. With that being said, this is the special exception as to why they're able to bring this back up. And if you go back to my previous videos, you will notice As I said last year, if you ask me, that was the catalyst to get this whole case started again, because they have been feeling some type of way that they feel like he got away with something, as we have seen many times before, and they bring it back in a different manner. Anyways, many people can overlook the fact that the prosecutor, Kim Foxx, was pressured into pursuing this case as a result of the public manipulation by Timothy Savage, among other people. The Savages emerged on social media with the wild allegations that R. Kelly is messing around with his daughter, yielding a baseball bat, threatening the singer. With the help of a journalist by the name of Jim Derogatis, who made his career writing slanderous articles about the singer over the course of 20 years, the Savages were given information on others to help spread their narratives. Interestingly enough, said journalists would rather obstruct justice by participating in illegal activities, refuse to testify in court, but continue to spread his stories. The first sign of manipulation is the fact that they knew with the truth they wouldn't be able to enlist the police to target the singer, so they concocted this story of their daughter being held captive. As time progressed, we noticed they started to backtrack on that story, and no longer were they physically being held captive, they are being mentally held captive. They also began to throw out other names, including alleged workers, including alleged victims, whom Derogatis kept in contact with. They, along with others, capitalized on the use of social media to push their narratives until they finally got the breakthrough they desired, holding a press conference at Kelly's old home. It would appear that even though Prosecutor Fox made a lot of questionable calls, no one would consider her possible misconduct in R. Kelly's case as they did with Jussie Smollett. No one questioned her secret meetings with now convicted extortionist Michael Avenatti, who's also representing multiple alleged accusers, whistleblowers, and parents, according to him. No one mentioned the political factors that would influence her decision to pursue charges based on the allegations thrown around in a scripted series based from a book. Now, according to the proffer documents, the alleged victims are Heather Williams, Rashonda Landfair, Lanita Carter, and Jerronda Pace.
Yesterday, Robert Kelly was indicted before a Cook County grand jury on 10 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse involving 4 victims. The first victim, H.W., was involved in incidents which occurred between May 26, 1998 and May 25, 1999. A grand jury returned an indictment on 4 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse based on the victim being under the age of 17 and Robert Kelly being more than 5 years older than the victim. The victim met Robert Kelly on her 16th birthday, where she was celebrating at a restaurant. At that encounter, the victim told Robert Kelly it was her 16th birthday that day. Robert Kelly's manager then gave the victim Robert Kelly's business card with Robert Kelly's personal cell phone number written on it and told the victim Robert Kelly wanted her to call him. The victim's mother heard this and took the card and told Robert Kelly's manager that the victim was only 16. The victim later got that card from her mother's purse and called Robert Kelly. Robert Kelly told the victim to come to his studio. Robert Kelly told the victim after her dad dropped her off at school, she could take a cab to his studio. The victim followed Robert Kelly's instructions. At that first encounter at Robert Kelly's studio, located at 865 North Larrabee in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois, Robert Kelly had difficulty maintaining an erection and penetrated the victim repeatedly vaginally and orally. Afterwards, Robert Kelly told the victim to get an envelope with money from the receptionist, and that the victim assumed that that money was to pay for the cab rides to and from Robert Kelly's studio. The envelope contained a large sum of money, more than was needed to pay for the 2 cab rides. The victim had similar sexual encounters about once a month with Robert Kelly from May 26, 1998 to May 25, 1999. The second victim, R.L., was involved in an incident which occurred between September 26, 1998 and September 25, 2001. A grand jury returned an indictment on 2 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse based on the victim being under the age of 17 and Robert Kelly being more than 5 years older than the victim. In 2001, a witness had conversations with Robert Kelly and Robert Kelly's associates, where the witness was asked to retrieve videotapes showing Robert Kelly having sexual intercourse with the victim in this case when she was only 14 years old. The witness obtained that video and watched it. The witness eventually turned this video over to the Cook County State's Attorney's Office through his attorney. The witness has identified the girl in the video as the girl he knows to be the niece of S.E. Additionally, the witness identified the scenes from the video as having been from Robert Kelly's house located at 1 Melrose Lane, Olympia Fields, Cook County, Illinois. In the video, the victim repeatedly says she is 14 years old, and Robert Kelly is seen penetrating the victim orally and vaginally, and the victim performs oral sex on Robert Kelly. S.E. has identified the girl in the video as her niece, the victim in this case. The third victim, L.C., was involved in an incident which occurred on February 18, 2003. A grand jury returned an indictment on 1 count of aggravated criminal sexual abuse based on the transmission of semen by Robert Kelly upon any part of the body of the victim for the purpose of sexual gratification during the course of the underlying forcible felony of aggravated criminal sexual assault attempt. On February 18, 2003, at 865 North Larrabee Street in Chicago, Cook County, Illinois, the victim was 24 years old and worked as a hairdresser for Robert Kelly. While the victim was waiting alone in a room for Robert Kelly to come in so she could braid his hair, Robert Kelly entered saying he didn't want his hair braided that day. He wanted his head massaged. At the time he said this, Robert Kelly had his pants pulled down and he was pointing to his penis. Robert Kelly grabbed the victim by the head and tried to force her mouth onto his exposed penis, but the victim was able to resist. Robert Kelly then masturbated and ejaculated onto the victim and spit in her face several times. The shirt the victim was wearing was submitted to the Illinois State Police for DNA testing, and the semen was identified on the shirt. The male DNA identified in the semen sample is a match to Robert Kelly's DNA profile. The fourth victim, J.P., was involved in incidents which occurred between May 1st, 2009 and January 31st, 2010. A grand jury returned an indictment on 3 counts of aggravated criminal sexual abuse, on the victim being under the age of 17 and Robert Kelly being more than 5 years older than the victim. This victim attended the criminal trial of Robert Kelly in Chicago in 2008 and met Robert Kelly getting his autograph after court one day. The victim told Robert Kelly how old she was, and he invited her to his house at 1 Melrose Lane, Olympia Fields, Cook County, Illinois. Between May 1st, 2009 and January 31st, 2010, the victim had vaginal and oral sex with Robert Kelly multiple times. At times, Robert Kelly would spit on her.
Today asking the state's attorney's office to make a request to all witnesses involved in this case to preserve all emails, texts, and social media posts. Greenberg accusing also Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx of having behind-the-scenes conversations with attorney Michael Avenatti, who says he represents some of the victims in this case. And R. Kelly's lawyer wants access to any and all communication coming out of Fox's office. He feels the timing of the charges filed against R. Kelly is suspicious.
There's all this pressure. There was a so-called documentary, which was really just a hatchet job that was done. And then they indicted these cases. And the problem is there was this call from the prosecutor. People call, let us know what happened. And so far, from what I can tell, the only people who called all of a sudden ended up with Michael Avenatti as their lawyer.
The judge today said he was not prepared to rule on Greenberg's motion and said he felt it was unfair for the state to respond this early in the discovery phase. The state saying Greenberg's request, quote, delves into the realm of attorney-client privilege. There was also mention of the request last week for Kelly to travel to Dubai for concerts in April. Greenberg withdrew that motion today after the judge said there was never an official contract presented, and the government of Dubai said Kelly did not have any concerts scheduled there. Michael Avenatti is lashing back at Steve Greenberg on Twitter today, saying that Stephen Greenberg, R. Kelly's attorney, is now trying to distract attention away from the clear guilt of his client by raising bogus arguments about me and Kim Foxx. The evidence is the evidence. Multiple witnesses, tapes, plus DNA. R. Kelly will be convicted for his sexual abuse of girls. R. Kelly again charged with 10 counts of criminal sexual abuse involving 4 different women, 3 who say they were underage at the time that this allegedly took place.
Now let's just briefly run through these 4 alleged victims. Because if you haven't caught on yet, the way I am producing my content is based on the paperwork. So regardless of what new information comes out, just know that whatever it is, there's going to be a video to back up my view as to why R. Kelly is not guilty. So it's not necessary for me every time there's a new update to come on and talk about it, when my point of view is to dismantle the whole narrative they have put together. Now, when it comes to this Heather Williams girl, I think it's mighty coincidental. Her timeline lines up with a specific date that was seen on this alleged sex tape from the first trial. Not to mention that, why did it take this docuseries airing before she decided to come forward? On top of that, not only did she do just as many other people accusing R. Kelly did, they did everything in their power to try to avoid making police reports, because we know that would be illegal. They would have rather stuck to planting these stories in the media. So when you think back and look at all these people who began doing all this extra talking on social media, if they had again just sat back and let this case go as it needed to go, there would be no need to debunk the bull crap that we are seeing. So again, just like with this prosecutor, Surviving R. Kelly is released, and right within a month and a half later, she's filing a lawsuit trying to get money. The second person, let's talk about the fact that during the first trial, this same individual already stated she wasn't in the video. Relatives and other people testified it wasn't her in the video. Relatives have testified that they were touring and she was sharing a room with them. So it would be impossible for her to be in the video, among other things that they stated as to why it wasn't her in the video. So to give weight to the fact that she is now testifying, I'm just going to have to wait and see how that progresses, considering that if she does and if her story changes, there's already that fact that you've already ruined your credibility. Now, people can say, well, she got paid off, but at the end of the day, if she had got paid off and disappeared, that'd be one scenario. But to say I got paid off, my father continued to work with him, I continued to be around him, that does not signal to me a victim. The third girl, Lanita Carter. My thing with her is, again, I go back to that the first lawsuit that I ever brought to your attention, in which somebody by the name of Courtney Carter was listed. And I just find it a little coincidental. But not only that, her story is a little conflicting. And considering what she told on Lifetime and considering what the prosecutors have read, it's a little sketchy. To say that this lady sued him not once but twice, again, that gives motive for these women to do this. So that answers the question as to why would these women lie? Why would all these different women lie? Well, you think about it. If you had nothing going on for yourself, you hadn't accomplished much in your life, and somebody told you, I know where you can get 250,000, 100,000, or anything like that, just to make up a story or go along with the story, do you think the average person is going to say, no, I'm not going to do that? The last person would be Geronda Pace. Now, it's like beating a dead horse. But the biggest thing that I want to bring out is, if she can so convincingly cry on a fake show, as she noted with this Bill Cunningham in which she appeared on, why is it so hard to believe that she can give that same type of performance for R. Kelly? Surviving R. Kelly, that is. It's not possible that this girl schemed, and as we saw documented, perfectly planted herself to be seen, gave misinformation, and is now proclaiming to be a victim. Now, I don't know where the mistake of age defense will come into play with any woman that has come in contact with this man who has lied about their age and is now proclaiming to be a victim. I don't know how that will fall. We will have to wait and see. But as for these four that have been put in this state case, I think it's obvious this case is very weak and superficial.
Your sister and her secret life.
You don't stop today, I'm gonna take my money and I'm gonna wash my hands to you. That's it and that's all.